So we've got this really great article from Forbes and Allison McCauley. So shout out to her. She knows she's a really smart blockchain expert, but she kind of goes over the fact that there's a battle raging now. It's starting now for rule of the metaverse. And let's see. So uh, as we all know, Facebook is now Meta, and now they have a metaverse, and they're going to start selling NFTs. That comes right on the heels of their announcing the Novi wallet. BJ, you can come back to me. And obviously, Facebook Marketplace is going to integrate perfectly with an NFT marketplace. So watch out, Coinbase. They already have a stake in the metaverse with VR. So you see like VR chat and other metaverses already populating in a Facebook-centric, centralized manner. Joe, is it inevitable that the metaverse will be the first major centralized blockchain that gets, when I say major, I mean like it's in the public mind? And is there room for a decentralized metaverse?
I definitely do think that metaverse is coming. I think that it's going to take time for it to develop, and we are so early to this whole concept. Like, it's kind of mind-boggling to think about like what is possible. I remember there was like a TikTok, and it was basically where like people had glasses on, and you would walk around like our world here, and then you would look at somebody, and they would be wearing digital artwork, and it was like a way that you could flex like your shoes, or like it was all like in this
Yeah.
metaverse kind of thing. And it was like,
Yep.
I can't believe that we're even thinking like this and that we're actually going to be moving towards it. I do think that it will happen. I do think it's going to take some time though. And the fact that we're so early to this and we're even talking about this is really insane to me. It's exciting as well because you're seeing, and again, I'm going to go back to TikTok. There's one of those games where you put the goggles on, I think it's VR, and they're like slashing at the different cubes and the blocks. And it just is so engaging and it's so real that it's kind of scary a little bit to think that like we're gonna be throwing these headsets on, and all of a sudden, these things are gonna be as real, if not, even more real than our real reality. And going back to NFTs and how this is going to tie into everything, and why Facebook is even moving towards this, is I think Zuckerberg can. He's got to, he sees what's going to happen next, right? And he kind of saw that with Facebook, and he kind of saw like what people were looking for, and was able to meet that demand early. And that's kind of why I think he's doing that. And so it's going to be really interesting to watch it develop. Really exciting times. But I do think it's definitely inevitable, and it's going to be happening probably before we know
Mark
it.
Zuckerberg is an android.
That's
why
he's
able to analyze these. That's why he's able to analyze these things.
Analyzing. So, speaking of analyzing, Stash, who has the most ground to make up when it comes to metaverse dominance? Is it Amazon? Is it Spotify? Is it Google? Is it Apple? Who is going to be playing catch up in the next few years?
Spotify, Google, or Apple? I mean, Spotify doesn't even, they don't even belong in that list. But Amazon, Apple, and Google all do. Spotify is they're not really in that whole thing. I mean, I would say probably out of that list, I think that Apple's probably going to be the one that adapts the slowest. They have, whereas they've had an edge here, those days I feel like are a little bit gone now, man. They've had this really great, trendy support from people. But I think that in general, like, they just haven't been innovating, right? They've just been kind of riding on the same old products, releasing things, not really doing a whole lot of innovation. Google can easily do that, with the massive amount of everything they have. Same thing with Amazon. And we already see Amazon, creating games. I've been playing a lot of New World, which is the new Amazon MMORPG. And and that's our first big release of a open world video game. So I think that it will really be between those two. I think Apple will be far behind, but there are already a bunch of really great metaverses out there that have really led the way with this. Decentraland is essentially what I would call one of the OG NFT enabled ones. But I mean, even farther before that, we've been doing this in gaming for decades already. You look at things like Second Life, where people have been living their lives in there, the Sims, and every other MMORPG out there. I've spent countless hours as my digital avatar in these games, spending money, hanging out with friends, doing community events. So I think all of these platforms, Meta, aka the social media platform formerly known as Facebook, also has a lot to catch up on, even though they have a ton of resources. I would love to see something like Decentraland really win out here, being a decentralized entity, or at least closer to it than something like a Facebook or Amazon or Google is going to put out. So
Got it. So, Steve, who do you think is going to be the first demographic to embrace the metaverse? Everyone's just assuming that it's Gen Z,
Yeah.
and the aforementioned generation that's happening right now, not Gen Z, Gen Alpha. I forget what they're called. Who do you think that's going to be? Are we missing the point? Are they gauging it to be too young? Is it older people? What do you think?
Yeah, good question. I think that Zuck, he has touched all these different generations. Like he's got the boomers with Facebook now. He went for the millennials with Instagram, and he's aiming for the metaverse for Gen Z. And I think that being digitally native, Gen Z is going to value things higher that are digitally than physical. So people are going to start doing things in the physical world just to make them digital. And something like, what Stash touched on is great, that there are metaverses out there already in a decentralized fashion. And this news with Meta being the new brand, I think is going to pump the sandboxes, the Decentralands, and all of the actual decentralized projects,
Interesting.
because people are starting to research it, just like Libra,
Yep.
where it was going to bring people to the ecosystem because they're like, oh, actually, I despise centralized power like Facebook. I think I'm going to research a decentralized option. And I
Yeah.
totally agree with Stash that there are metaverses that exist. Me and him actually have been in the first multiplayer experience in Sandbox together.
Sandbox, baby.
That's right. So we host a weekly event, Sandstorm. Definitely be there. It's
Sweet.
inside the metaverse. But yeah, I think it's overall good news. I've been trying to think of how it's bad, but it exposes centralized versus decentralized, in
Yeah.
my opinion.
Yeah, it really does. So, speaking of that, Rice, give me your take. Is this a smokescreen for Facebook to find a new company to acquire, to find a younger user base? Because we all know Facebook's core user base is aging rapidly, and they are desperate to get into a younger audience. Is this all just smoke and mirrors?
I don't necessarily think so. I mean, I think that this is all strategic moves on Facebook's and trying to stay relevant. Also, between the whistleblower and all the information that's been coming out over the past few years, is the Facebook brand is starting to become very tainted. So, trying to rebrand themselves and get away from that, and then make it all exciting about the metaverse and NFTs and crypto. We just still got to remember to remind people, especially the younger generation, because those are the ones who are going to who aren't going to remember all this negativity, all this spying, and all this information collecting that Facebook has been doing. And when you mentioned earlier about age demographics, something that I found out recently that really surprised me is the fact that older people, and I'm talking senior citizens, are really starting to get involved in gaming. I've been hearing like old folks homes, it's a pretty big deal. Like you might go in there and see a lot of people playing games. So a lot of older people are starting to take on to that. And basically, I would also agree, because Stash is the expert when it comes to gaming and the aspects of the metaverse. He's got around the metaverse, like we doing around the blockchain. He was very forward thinking on that. Decentraland is a project that I've been very, very gung ho on and bullish since it started.
Yeah, man.
And it reminds me kind of like the Fortnite vibe. But yeah, the metaverse has always existed. I'm just looking forward to seeing the interoperability between these kind of metaverses, where you can take your NFTs from an Ethereum blockchain or a Wax blockchain and use them on another blockchain, and be able to bring these items into different worlds, into different games, into different settings, in a lot of different fashions. So it's really, it's the future's bright. But we also got to make sure that in this particular instance, that with Facebook doing the rebrand, we've got to make sure that we're keeping that awareness of what Facebook has been doing and what they're probably going to continue to do, They're just trying to, the smoke and mirrors to me is trying to put up the flashy VR world, metaverse, NFTs, crypto, and make everybody forget about what had happened. Just like everybody's talking about Alex Baldwin shooting somebody on a set, and in the meantime, we have issues going on with the supply chain. So it's like our attention is being diverted to the wrong places.
Yeah, it's all a diversion at this point. So